close, I also want you to all feel free to raise your hand, ask any questions you're comfortable asking, and most importantly, to feel safe here, to speak up and speak out, and gain some wisdom from these incredible, brilliant women that are standing right before you. Okay, so feel free to jump in, interrupt me, interrupt them, and I want this very interactive. So first of all, since we've been talking a lot about moms, some of you were here for Kim's speech in the morning, her presentation, which was absolutely fabulous. And she kept talking about knowing your purpose and living it. And we talked about different obstacles that we can all face. I think a lot of us, a lot of what Kim talked about also was hearing that she wasn't worthy, that she was an accident, she shouldn't be here. Have any of you ever heard that growing up?
I never really heard that I was an accident. Can everyone hear me? Hi. I never really heard so much that I was an accident. What I did hear a lot growing up is wait. You don't look right. You know, stop eating that. Stop eating this. Look better. Grow up. So it wasn't that I wasn't meant to be here. It's that I wasn't meant to look the way I always did.
Everybody hear that? Interesting. Okay. Interesting.
I know for me, some of you have met my mother before, and she's not the type of woman that bites her tongue, or it's always been all my life, even she's going to be 79 years old this year, all my life where she has said what's on her mind, and if abortion was legal, you wouldn't be here. That was the one I heard. But it wasn't in a sense where she was just being honest. You know, this is what she was going through at that time. Of course, she's so thrilled and happy that, you know, and I still drive her crazy to this day, but that was her thing, and that was because it was her journey, her walk, you know? So yeah, that's what I heard.
I remember never hearing that message, but what I did hear was, no matter what I did, it was, well, why didn't you do this too? And that feeling of no matter how much I had accomplished, no matter that I was a straight A student, that you know, I had done so much, that, well, why didn't you do this too? So that really fostered for me for a long time the feeling that I just could never be enough. You know, and it really had an effect.
Before Jamaica became independent, every morning in school we would sing God Save the Queen because we were a British colony. And I remember I was about 10 years old, I went home and I said, Mama, who is the Queen and why do we have to sing for God to save her? And she said to me, you're just like your father, you're a rebel. So.
I think the bigger challenge for me growing up was I was a reflection of my father, who was not there. So while she may have wanted me, she didn't want the constant reminders of what she didn't have with my father not being there. And no matter what I did and the things and traits that I had in terms of the things I was interested in, the things I was good at, they were all constant reminders to her of the father and the husband that wasn't there. And so it was a constant, you know, diminishment of me as a person to make her feel better because it made her feel bad if I succeeded, frankly. And so it's unfortunate that I felt like I was competition for my mother.
Never be good enough. Driving you succeed, no matter how much you accomplish, it's not good enough. And also, I think it's not only what's being said, but what's not being said. And dying just, I love you and good job. So never forget to tell them, you know, thank you, you did the job today, or I love you. You know, that goes much further than anything else. Sometimes it's not hearing what you want.
Now knowing everything you shared and the journey you've been on and continue to go on, you know, often we say, my journey was, and I feel like it is, and it's going to be, because we have different seasons and different moments in that journey. Even just today, I hope, is a big chapter in your book. So knowing what we know now, that these ladies have generously and beautifully shared, how would you have liked to have been mothered or fathered or just parented differently? Would you offer any suggestions, if you were able to rewrite those past memories? What would you say? And I ask this for all the ladies here that are moms. And is there something you could suggest to not rewrite history?
You know, I can say, having raised 3 daughters, my 3 daughters are all grown, and one of the things that I tried to do differently that I would have wanted for myself is just to let them be themselves and be heard and acknowledged and validated for exactly who they were. to constantly give that feedback of, wow, that was a great effort, you know, that, wow, you did a great job, and constantly try to build up who they were and let them be who they were completely, and not question that or make them feel that they were less than in any way. And that's what I would have wanted.
My mom was both mother and father, and I think that it's made me the person who I am today. I come from a strong line of single mothers, and I think that the only difference that I would have is to have that father figure there, and I didn't realize that it was an issue until I got to law school, and everybody had a mentor. All of the minority students had mentors, and my mentor was the school psychologist. And she helped me to realize that all of the guys that I dated looked like my father because I was trying to replace him. And it wasn't until then that I stopped dating guys that looked like him and went totally opposite and started dating totally different guys. But that abandonment, the lack of being there, the lack of support, did something to me, and I didn't realize until then the impact that it had on me. And then I started to identify and see that within my friends, within my family, and tried to do some research to help compensate and make up for that. And I realized what a phenomenal woman my mom was in being both mother and father. And the first question that you asked, you said, you know, what was like, and my mom made me think I could be the president of the United States. I mean, there was nothing that I didn't think I could do because she overpowered, you know, she was just like, Lisa, you're the greatest, you're beautiful, you're this, you're that. And I didn't know any different, you know, that there was anything different about me than my friends who had both parents in the household. And so I got to law school and realized that, okay, you're different, and this is why you're doing this is why you're acting out this way, this is why you're dating this kind of guy, this is why you're letting this guy do this to you. You know, all of the things that come along with that. And, you know, I thank God for being able to do research and to look deeper within and to talk about it, because it's something that we don't talk about as a community. We just keep it bottled up and, you know, nobody says anything, and it's just how it is. So I think communication is the key. And with my daughter, I teach her the same thing, that you're beautiful, her dad's there. And I try to make sure that when he says, I'm going to be there at 2 o'clock, that he is there at 2 o'clock. Because when my dad said, I'm coming to get you this weekend, he never showed up, you know, time and time and time again. And every time I looked out the window looking for him, you know, he just didn't show up. So I tried to instill that in my husband, the importance of being honest and keeping your word. So
I guess my comment would be, don't ever stay in a bad relationship or a bad marriage for your children, because it wears off on the children. And I, with my parents and with several people that I've known, have said, well, we're in this for the kids, it's best for the kids, and it's really not. Many years of therapy later, I've started realizing that. I've learned, based from, you know, my childhood, not to settle. And that's kind of, my mom was a very strong woman, but I didn't have a dad, so she settled for the guy who would marry the woman with the 5-year-old daughter, you know. And no matter what, my advice is don't ever settle. And I know that now, and I'm definitely employing that.
When you ask what you would change and do differently, I can honestly say there's nothing that I would do differently. My father wasn't there as well, and it was just my mom, and she raised us with the mentality, you don't need a man, you can do it by yourself, I can do bad by myself, men ain't this, you know, this and that, my whole life. Because of that strength that she possessed and what I saw in her on a regular basis, that I know that even in this day and time when I've been blessed with an amazing partner, an amazing man, I recognize that it's not my man who makes me. You know, it's that independence and what I got from my mother, that I am my own woman. I love you and I love to grow with you, but, you know, that's not my foundation. You know, and going back to the father figure, it's interesting how all your life, growing up without a father, my mother was everyone, grandparents, aunts, uncles, everything. There wasn't other family. Our situation, just briefly, she's a white woman, German Jew, married my father in the 60s, had custody of her first 3 children, and lost them because she married my father. And so her family wasn't there, and you know, just a lot of, you know, sacrifice her whole life. When I tell you this woman from Florida to Cincinnati to Vegas cleaned houses, and I never wanted for anything, and it was that strength and that sacrifice, and she never brought a man in over us. That was something that I even have this conversation with my girlfriends now. If you have young children, be strong enough. Don't ever bring a man in over your child. Don't ever put someone else, especially a man, before your children. We can't do that. And I thank God for that sacrifice she made to this day. You know, to this day, it's very powerful.
And if I could, I think Tracy made an excellent point, and one that I want to amplify a little bit with respect to my mom, and it's just that you have to love she needed to love herself first before she could give anything to anybody else. And her lack of self-confidence and her lack of self-love is what, if I could change anything, it's to give that gift back to my mother so that she could love herself and be better for herself. That, in fact, then turns and allows her to love others around her better. And so as a parent, I have to remember, I have 3 kids myself. They challenge me every single day. I parent them differently, but I love myself first and who I am and what I know and what I've been through so that I can give to them. But until I love myself for who I am and draw strength from here, I can't give strength back out. And that's what I would change, or what I'd like to give back to my mother if I could go back in time. And now going forward, I don't want to give the impression that my mother is this terrible, terrible person. At the place and time where she was, with what she had, she did the best that she could. She did the best that she knew. And as we've grown closer over the past few years, one of the gifts that I try to give back to her is the love that I see that she has, the beauty of the person that she is, and what she's tried to be, and what she's given me, even in the midst of challenges.
I grew up with both parents, and my mother was a very strong and creative woman, but I watched her give up her dreams and her life to build her life around my father. And what I learned from that is I'm never going there. I'm going to have my own career, my own money, etc., etc. And I raised 2 daughters and a son, and I raised my daughters with that mentality also to be independent, have your own, work hard, don't have to depend on anyone unless you want to. Now, one of the challenges, though, about that is I've experienced it, and my 2 girls have expressed it, that, Mom, you know, some of the men are really threatened by us. You know, they say they want an independent woman, but what comes with an independent woman is you have your own ideas, you have your own thought processes, and why can't they respect that and move on as opposed to trying to be in control? So it's a double-edged sword, but I think many of us are going through it, and we've learned to handle things as best as we can in this life.
Thank you so much, ladies. Wonderful. I'd like to start taking some questions from all of you. I'm sure there's so many things you want to ask, and that's my crystal ball at home, so.
I grew up in a family in the islands, St. Thomas and the Virgin Islands. I was born here in the United States. You know, I just want to know, because I'm at a point in my life, I'm about to be 30 and I feel old. I'm going to be 30, and from 15 years old, I've worked hard, watching my mom, my dad on drugs, and those things have really made me feel. I've always told my grandma, she said, we'll never get married. Nobody will ever marry me because I have an independent mind. I'm going to be a princess, I'm going to be rich, but I want things or age in your life that you realize, okay, this is me, and this is what I'm headed. What step, or what was the first step that you took to get
there? I was 25 when I had my son. And the circumstances under which I had my son were that I got married. Now, my husband and I were together for 8 years before we got married, but we never lived together. So it was very traditional. I stayed home with my parents until we got married. A month into our marriage, I was pregnant. And I had morning sickness, afternoon sickness, evening sickness. I had every kind of sickness you could think of. And I was going through a lot because of the physical stress of the pregnancy, which meant my husband was going through a lot because I wasn't such a nice person. But more so when my son was born. My husband and I struggled a lot because we were first time living together, first time parents. And my husband kind of shied away for a while. Not that he wasn't there for his children, he always was. He was always there for my son, but his relationship with me was very strained. We didn't really talk much. He didn't really want to go out with me to my family's house as much as I wanted to go out. And after about 6 months, I realized, you know what? I have to do what I have to do. I'm going to get up and leave the house when I have to leave the house with my son. I'm going to get up and go get my hair done when I have to get my hair done. I'm going to go to work like I have to go to work and stay however long it takes me to finish work. I was about 26 by that time. And that's when I realized, as a woman, as a mother, I just had to do what I had to do for my son because nobody was going to do it for me.
The moment for me crystallized when I'm lying on the bottom of the step, and my now ex-husband, but then husband, has his foot on me and a fireplace poker at my neck and threatening to kill me. And I break loose and I get out of the house. I've got 2 children aged 2.5 at the time and about 8 months. They're upstairs. I get out of the house. I run down the highway that's adjacent to my house. I live right off of a major thoroughfare. I'm in my pajamas and bare feet running down a highway, and nobody stops to help me. And he knocks me over the embankment, and I go rolling down the highway embankment. And it crystallized for me at that point at the bottom of that embankment that I had to get back to my children. They were in the house, and I had to get away. And I asked myself at the bottom of the embankment, how did I get here? Not physically how I got here, but how did I get here? That was my moment. And I pulled myself together. I got up the embankment. He was standing there waiting for me, realizing what he had done, overly apologetic, as they always seem to be after they've done something to you. And we get back to the house, and I began to plot, not to kill him, but to get out. And I made the call that I should have made a long time ago to the one family member who could get me out. And I got out. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but that was my moment when I took my life back after having it almost taken away from me and being in a place where somebody valued me so little that they could do that to somebody they were supposed to love.
I know for me, it was around the age 28, and in that moment of what you're going to do, I don't know if that was it, but for me, writing is very therapeutic and healing. So it was a moment when I was writing in my journal, and I was writing to God, and I was giving thanks, and I was, you know, asking for guidance and clarity, and just, I was thinking, giving thanks for my baby, who was 2 at the time, and my firstborn, and just really in a place of gratitude. And I remember as I was writing my son's name, my pen stopped writing. And I remember it was quiet in my house. I'm home, my husband's traveling. And I remember hearing, it was like a ringing, like I heard it loud and clear, like a ringing, and the pen stopped writing. And then my spirit, I said, I know I'm supposed to go check on my child. To go something, it was something. So as that motherly instinct, I get up and I go check on my baby, and it's a new bed that we had gotten, and he was wedged down in the corner of the bed. And it was just such a moment. I straightened him up, put pillows all around him, and I went back to my space, and I said, God, I know this is real, and I hear you loud and clear. I said, I know when I start writing again, this pen is going to write. And I said, take me slow. I know you're taking me, but I'm home by myself and I'm scared. So, you know, just take me slow. I picked up that pen and I started writing then. And for me, that was a moment that life is about listening, and that passion that you want to, that you feel about something, that is what's going to lead you to your purpose. You know, I believe that if we follow our passion, we're led to our purpose. That's just how it has worked for me, and starting to find that passion came through writing and hearing and listening.
You know, I would say it was probably about I was about 29, and I remember a day, it was in the afternoon, that my daughter, who was then 14, came home, and she had a black eye and a busted lip, and I knew that her boyfriend had done that. and she lied to me. She wouldn't tell me, but I knew. And I remember, and it's a similar experience, I was in my room by myself, and I was crying, and I was praying, and I'm like, I don't know how to change this, but I knew that I needed to leave the relationship I was in at the time, which was brutal. And I knew that I had to make real efforts to become a true example of the strength and independence that I wanted for my daughters. I knew that I had to do something. And I remember hitting my knees with tears streaming down my face and saying, you know, just show me. And from that moment on, I can't tell you how things moved in my life to take me to a place where some of the worst moments that have ever happened to me are the great joy that I have to be in service to others, because I get to use those things to be an example to my daughter, to all three of my daughters, and have also had the opportunity to use that experience to help hundreds of women in service through the services I've provided in domestic violence. So I'm very grateful for that moment.
I've had several aha moments, but one that I'd like to share today, and as Tracy was talking, it hit me again, that now's the time to share it. I delivered at 8 months a stillborn baby, and that was one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do, and I've been through some difficult times. And I didn't understand why it happened. All of the checkups had been great, you know, the pregnancy was great. I already delivered one normal, healthy, happy baby. And I didn't think I would ever stop crying. I didn't think I could ever pick myself up out of the fetal position in my bed. And on the days that I would peel myself out of the bed and go into the shower was like my sanctuary. I would just cry and cry and cry. And so one day, before the doctor released me to drive, I got in my car and was going to my mother's house. And I was stopped at the red light for only God knows how long. And the song came on the radio, and it was Praise Is What I Do. And it was for that time, I was able to praise God in my pain. And it was like He delivered me, and all of the pain just went away. I mean, all of the pain and anger and everything that I was feeling that had been bottled up was released at that red light. I don't know how many cars went past me, or how many cars were blowing, or what was happening. But I mean, for days and days, my family was calling, my friends were calling, my husband was just like, oh my God, I don't know how we're gonna get her back. But it was that song that delivered me. And ever since that time, it's like I've been able to hear clearly what God has assigned me to do. And this was one of the things. And I never thought that this book would help anybody other than the clients that Marcia and I had at New Vision CDC. That's who I thought I wrote it for. But this book has enabled me to go to the White House, has enabled me to talk to millions of people across the world. And you just have to be willing and open to listen. And God has a way of getting your attention, and that's what I've accepted that as being. So thank you for your question, and thank you for allowing me to share that.
Like most of us here, I too have had many moments, but I had a recent moment that I'd like to share with you. When I finally found my publisher for my book after looking for 6 years, I had this boyfriend, I guess, man-friend, because I'm too old for the boyfriend thing. Anyway, after I signed the contract with the publisher, then the hard work had just begun. I had to go through seven bouts of editing and so forth. So it became my night job. You know, I go to work, come home, have a bite to eat, and then be on the computer until 11, 12 at night. So after that, during that journey, I was getting temper tantrums, and you no longer have any time for me, blah, 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 blah. And one day, about 3 months into it, I said, the book, the miserable man, the book, the miserable man. And I chose the book, and no regrets.
I think for me, my moment came when I was about 23. I had graduated college the year before, and I was living in Manhattan trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I knew I wanted to do something in the medical field. And just to backtrack, I was born with a chronic disease that often causes disabling pain. There were times when I couldn't walk and I was in a wheelchair. And right about that time when I was 23, I had a really bad episode. And all my physicians said, "You'll never be able to get through medical school. You won't be able to do it. We suggest you look into something else, less demanding." Well, mind you, first of all, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm an Aries, and I'm half Italian, half Russian. So when you tell me not to do something that I can't do something, I will go ahead and do it. And I was able to overcome everyone's advice not to do it. And I had my trials and triumphs throughout school and training. And today, I am a nationally recognized speaker. I've traveled several times to Africa to do AIDS relief work. And yeah, sometimes I still have to use that wheelchair at the airport or wherever, but I was able to overcome it with the grace of my higher power and my own self-willingness and self-confidence that I could.
Deep breath and exhale. That is incredible. Wow, my cup is full. How about you? Thank you for that, Ace. I'd like to take one more question, although I'd love to actually do this all day. This is actually hard to end this. We have other things planned. But I'd like to take one more question from...
Hey, good afternoon. I'm 28, I have 4 kids. I come from a family that they really go to the family, they really go to college because they don't want the student loans and all that stuff going on. But I decided to go to college. I did my medical assistant, I did nursing assistant. But I have in my mind still that no one else went to college, so do I keep going on? Because most of the time, stayed home and took care of the kids. And the dads, some of the dads wasn't around, and the ones that was around was no good. So I have in my mind that if my mom and dad, aunties, uncles, and all of them did it, do I supposed to do it? Because I want to be that person to achieve higher than the ones that was in my family. So I want to know, like, how do you overcome that? Because there's like, because when you do, in my family, when you do accomplish something, someone always has something to say. Like, why are you doing this? And then I start thinking like, why am I doing this? So that's why I was like, am I supposed to just stick to that because everybody just work minimum wage jobs. I don't want to work minimum wage jobs. And so when I started thinking about, well, my mom said, why am I paying student loans when I'm not going to get a job? Aunt and uncle, they didn't go to college, so I'm just stuck in like, what am I supposed to do? Well, I just supposed to like sit around and just try to do anything to make ends meet. So that's why I was like, how do you do it with the kids, and then you have family members in your ear saying you don't have to do that.
Girlfriend, I'd like to tell you, you can do and be whatever you want to be. I don't care what anybody says. My mother, I mean, God bless her, she probably put too much in me, but whatever I have in me, I share it with everybody else. I was telling one of the ministers at my church yesterday, sometimes I give so much encouragement that it drains me, but I'm here to tell you, I'll give you my home phone number, my cell phone number. I want you, here, have my book. It has inspirational quotes for every day. You can do it. Don't worry about what anybody else says. I used to deal with low self-esteem. Not anymore. I will encourage you till you graduate. You can do it. Don't let anybody tell you anything differently. I believe in you if nobody else does. I'm your biggest fan from now on. See me afterwards, please. Because somebody was there to encourage me. Where's Marcia? She might have just walked. There's my cheerleader right there. Marcia has helped me through some tough times. We're on the same team. We got your back, girlfriend.
Here's the thing, you can't change your family, but you can certainly get some new friends. one of the most important things any one of us can do is surround ourselves with people who are affirming, who are empowering, who are encouraging. Sometimes someone will say if that's easier said than done, you have to go back to where you live, and you can't get rid of the family that you have. But I'm a first. I'm a first to go to school. I'm a first to get out, if you will. And I have those same cousins who call me up when they need bail. I have those same aunts who, when I show up, they want to ride somewhere. So you can't move those people unless they want to be moved, but you can move yourself. And so you really and truly, you have it within you. You've already taken the steps to do it. And we can sit here, we can give you numbers, you can call us when you need us, what have you, but it's got to come from in here. And you know you want better, and you know you can do better, and you know you're on that pathway. Get some new friends.
And that example you are for your children, you know, you have to think bigger than that. That term, my mother would always say, misery loves company. You know, so it's already in you. You don't even have to ask that question because you already know the answer. That's what we tend to do a lot of the time. We as women especially, we already know what we're supposed to be doing. That's that fire that's inside of you. You don't fuel that fire with positive direction and what you want. That's going to lead to something else. That dis-ease that you feel inside, you don't want it to be disease. You don't want that. So listen to that. Follow your passion and live your purpose. We used to live here in Florida when I was a little girl, way down south in Goulds, and we moved away because my mother knew I wasn't being educated. She'd come pick me up, I'm saying chunk the ball, tote the bag, and she would always tell me, Tracy, if they can keep you uneducated, they can control you. And as a child, you try to figure out who they are, this great wizard, and it wasn't until I was brought full circle back to Florida with my own children through educating them and working with other children that I see that's exactly what's happening. That's how you control people. That's how you control the vote. That's how you control influence. So we can't be afraid of education. You have to embrace that. You have to have a love for learning. For the rest of your life, have a love for learning and instill that in your children. And what better way to do that than being that example of reaching for more. God bless you.
And if I might just piggyback off of what Tracy said, when I see students every day, so I get the question, because they're adult students, why do I have to continue? Why should I? Life happens, my children are sick, my husband doesn't support me, I don't have a husband, I don't have anybody there for me. When they ask me why, I say because that's the one thing among anything else in this life that nobody can ever take away from you, ever. And if you think of education as a legacy, because it is, you want to think of it as a legacy. What's the legacy that you're handing down to your children? And with education, I mean, that's tremendous. You're taking your kids places that you are not going to be, but because they know that you've done more than your family before you did. So, God bless you, and that's right. That's absolutely right.
I agree completely. I'm in education as well, and it's vocational education, which I was always taught wasn't good enough. But after I did my college degree, I did my vocational education because that was my dream. And the answer that you give them is because you're investing in yourself. You're a phenomenal woman. That's right. Okay? And it's for you. And that's if your passion is team education, and that's what you do. Any successful person is because they're passionate about something. Passion is the key for anything. If you ask why do people, the big thing in education is retention and keeping students in school, and what's the key that keeps people in school is their passion. So it's finding your passion and following it and living it, and don't let anyone take that